Hello and welcome to Classical Stuff You Should Know, a podcast about books and music and culture and government and more books in translation and whatever else we have been thinking about recently. My name is Thomas Magby. I am joined, as always, by Mr. AJ Hannenberg.
That's me.
And Mr. Graham Donaldson.
Hi.
And today, I don't have a witty, I really never have a witty or smart introduction.
I was about to say, that's a lot of tags that's going to have to go on our Apple page, like
I'm okay
government and old books.
That increases the chance of someone finding us, so I think I'm okay with that.
Or
I heard, so I know this guy.
spreads us out.
I know this guy that works in tags.
Okay.
And apparently, no, I'm
Is that
serious.
on his business card?
Like the game?
I work in...
Well, his job was to make
It's like
you
a skateboarding
go
thing, isn't it?
to go higher in the search engines by doing specific tags.
Oh.
And apparently, the secret is not thinking of all the common things people search for. You want to tag yourself with like the weirdest, most obscure. Like if someone types in, "How do classical book Beowulf college class?"
Yeah.
Like I want to anticipate that, have that as a tag, and then because nobody else has that as a tag, I'll pop to the highest of the list.
Okay, so we're a podcast about making fun of a book from 1994 that no one has read since then. Is that was my episode last time? So, or a book about pickling giant heads or something.
Pickling Mimir's head.
Yeah, that. So that's what our podcast is
our
all
hashtag.
about. Yes.
Good old pickled Mimir.
Pickled heads.
Mimir's
Yeah.
head.
AJ, I think you're continuing on with these Poetic Eddas, correct?
I am, and guys, it is still a treat. So if you haven't listened to the last episode, that's totally okay. The Poetic Eddas are a collection of poems from just after the Viking Age, kind of collected from the Viking Age, and they are one of our only solid sources for Viking mythology. There's one or two other ones, but this is one of the hugest sources we have for how the Vikings saw their spirituality, their world, all that stuff. And the first half of the book is stories of gods and elves, right? Gods, elves, and giants, and
that's
those
what
folks.
we covered last time.
Right, and that's what we covered last time. And those stories are a little bit scattered. There isn't necessarily one common, narrative thread through the whole thing. So if it felt a little scattered last time, it was scattered last time because it was just a whole bunch of individual stories about the gods.
Right.
The second half of the book, which actually feels longer than the first half, if you are going to read it yourself.
So it was bad?
No, I think it physically is a longer portion.
Okay.
Then it's actually one continuous narrative about a family. And it comes in different pieces and kind of fragments, but it's all one big story.
Who's the family?
The family is the Volsungs.
Didn't we talk about them last time?
Yeah, apparently there's a saga of the Volsungs, and I'm not sure if it's also, there's a book translated by Jackson Crawford called Saga of the Volsungs, and I don't know if it's...
Jackson Crawford's on the case.
Go with Jackson Crawford he even has a cool hat on, and he looks like he's outside. He looks like a hiker.
He looks like he's in Norway or something.
Isn't he? He's Colorado, isn't he?
Denmark.
Isn't that where he's a professor in Colorado?
Yeah, he's really cool, and I will give another reason why he's cool near the end of this podcast.
I was told that on our last Poetic Edda's podcast by one of our fans that we had the, quote, most classical stuff moment ever. And it was, let me read you the text. It says, "I need you to know that you shouting, me, Graham, shouting Quiz Bowl, and then revealing that you have zero knowledge of Norse mythology is also the most classical stuff ever." He says, "It was perfect. Your aggression and excitement, AJ's surprise and delight, Magby's inability to stop the freight train."
That is the moment.
That contains...
It is everything.
That's like
sounds about right.
That's our podcast Edda.
I appreciate you caring so much for our fans that you're texting them one-on-one, every single one.
That's right. Well, he is a... Well,
so
actually, I was about to say he's not a subscriber.
You,
but if you are a subscriber,
let me give you Graham's cell phone number.
AJ's phone number.
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute.
And you can text
Mr.
Arthur Jan Hannenberg
anytime
himself.
Yeah,
I reply to texts all the time. I'm very good at phones.
Yes.
It is a skill that I have, and that's an inside joke for everyone who knows me and knows that I am terrible at phones and texts. Okay.
You have a nice phone, though.
So I do have a nice phone.
It's recording in 4K right now. Hi.
I'm waving at it for all of our YouTube listeners or viewers and listeners.
They should be doing both.
Okay, let's get into this. So the second half is the story of the Volsungs and largely one primary character named Sigurd.
Okay.
It's a sweet name.
That's a cool name.
And we'll get there eventually. He plays a fairly prominent role in the tale. I don't know if the Saga of the Volsungs is the same thing. I don't think it is. I think it's kind of a prose version of what this delivers in Poetics.
Yeah.
And there's some fun little asides, but it feels far more focused than the first half of the book, which is like, here's some random advice, and here's some stuff about runes, and here's a story where Thor and Odin kind of insult each other over a river for no reason, and here's one where they go to steal a big cauldron. Like it actually is focused on the exploits of one family.
So I guess it's the first part building out a world. I don't know. Do you need the first part to understand the second part? Or are they
Not
pretty
really.
independent?
The gods only have a very small hand in it. They show up once or twice. Odin causes a few problems. It's good if you know who the Valkyrie are, which are just like ladies who can fly and choose the winners of battles, right? They're human women who can fly. And then it helps if you know if Odin is sort of a jerkbag that makes everybody fight and to find warriors and is kind of desperate to stop Ragnarok. And that
What's his plan?
Loki's a turd.
What if he stops it? Then what?
has to keep
He doesn't have
stopping
a plan. Like, he knows it's coming. He
eventually-
can't stop it.
So why is he like trying to find warriors?
It reminds me of Gilgamesh, right? Even though I am doomed, I'm no better than a dead man. Still let me see the light of the sun. Like, he's like, even if you are doomed to die, does that mean that you should just like check out and lay on your couch?
This is like the existential thing, right?
Yeah.
Everything's meaningless, so you make your own meaning.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's a pretty existential like determinism kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, so the first poem begins with a fella named Helgi.
Okay.
Now, Helgi we will see two versions of because he gets reincarnated. So
This book is so weird.
it's you don't even have any idea. It's gonna get real weird and real tragic
Does he have a
during
change
today.
when he comes back? Like, is it different?
No, his name is also Helgi. It's just
but
born
he's
to
like
a different dad.
different character. He's
Yeah.
just, you know.
Oh, same character
Oh,
generally.
okay.
And he actually marries kind of the same girl, just a reincarnation of her. Svava. We'll get there.
Okay.
So stick with me. So there's a fella named King Hjorvarth.
Okay.
Why is
No
this so
chance.
funny? These names are going to be
name.
consistently like this,
Good, great.
right? Helgi. So this is the story of Helgi, but it begins with a king named Hjorvarth. And Hjorvarth had 3 wives, all beautiful, and he had sworn an oath to marry the most beautiful woman ever. Now, something you might not
We've
know
all
is that
sworn that oath at some point in
oaths
our
are
lives.
absolutely binding in
Oh,
the Viking
gosh.
world. If you break an oath, people will just straight up murder you. It's not okay, and you are shamed and cursed, and everything is going to be terrible. Like, you'll ride on a horse, and the horse will hate you just because you broke an oath. You do not want to break oaths. It's just something you don't do. So he had heard that another king, Svafnir, you're going to giggle at
Every
every
single
name,
one, yeah, for sure.
had a daughter that was the most beautiful daughter ever, and her name was Sigrlinn. We can call her Lynn for short.
Thank you.
So Hjorvarth sent one of his noble's kids, right,
Mm-hmm.
of the court, named Atli, to ask for her hand in marriage. And Atli stayed for a long time at King Svafnir's place, and King Svafnir eventually kind of said no, because Sigrlynn's kind of foster dad, this guy that helped her out, a noble at court named Franmar, said it was a bad idea. So Atli heads home. On the way, he chats with a bird, and the bird is like, this is going to happen. I'm going to make it happen. Give me a reward. And he's like, well, if you don't ask for anything weird, like the king's wife or the king's daughters, you're a bird. Like, as long as it's something normal like treasure,
I got some
we got
bread.
a deal.
Like a loaf of bread.
And the bird is like, soup's chill, let's make this happen.
Okay.
That is the last we hear of this bird.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I don't know how he enters. He doesn't enter the story again. That's it. They chat, and he kind of promises a better
It's a dropped plot thread.
result
What the-
later. Yeah,
seriously.
totally drop plot.
No, he
thread.
makes it happen.
So they come back,
in the
and when they
sequel.
arrive, maybe because of this magical bird, they find that Svafnir, Lynn's dad, remember, the cute girl's dad, has died
Oh, Jim.
Oh.
because another suitor got mad at him and came and murdered him.
Choked on a bird.
So Franmar, her like foster dad, is guarding Sigrlinn because the king has been killed.
Yeah.
Are you guys sticking with me?
Yes,
Sticking with you.
I mean, no, but yes.
And so
The guy that originally said you can't, giving her to marriage is a bad deal. He's now watching over her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the like her cute girl's foster father
Yes.
is now guarding her because her real dad got smoked by another one of her suitors.
Okay.
So they show up and they find Lynn, and she's being guarded by this giant bird. Turns out the bird was Franmar.
Oh,
He
cool.
turned into a bird and guarded her.
So
and
The bird does come back.
The bird does come back.
But it's a different bird.
Oh.
It wasn't Franmar initially. It was a different magical bird.
Okay.
And so they spear this bird, not realizing it's Franmar, because they're like, hey, check it out, a bird. And so they spear it, and then they take her back. And that's the story of how Lynn got married to Hjorvarth.
It's rough being attractive in the ancient world.
It is not a fun party. And so they have a kid, and they have a lot of trouble naming him.
Okay.
They don't name him very well. And so one day this kid...
Well, the marriage got off to like an inauspicious start.
Yeah, it's weird.
You'd think that they
killing
would
her
have-
foster dad
Yeah,
and
yeah.
rolling in when her dad just died. It wasn't a good
not
start.
great, yeah.
So he's like sitting on a rock one day, and some Valkyries ride by, and she's like, "Hey, Helgi, what's happening?" And he's like, "You named me Helgi, huh? Well, I'm not gonna accept that name unless I get you as like a present with it." And she's like, "Sweet. Here's a story about where you can find a really dope sword." And that's kind of how
that.
she responds. Her name is Svava.
Okay.
This is
Svava the
one of-
Valkyrie.
Svava the Valkyrie.
Svava the Valkyrie.
Okay.
And
So the kid didn't have a name until he was how old?
I don't know.
Talking
probably
age,
like,
apparently.
Yeah, like 14, probably. And so Hjorvarth recruits Helgi, Hjorvarth, remember the guy who swore to marry the beautiful women, to revenge the death of Svafnir, Lynn's dad, on the other suitor. Remember that other suitor that came in?
Right.
So he's like, all right, Helgi, you were born to her
revenge.
Yeah, you were born, you got to go avenge your mother's father's death. So he did. He goes and
Even
kills.
though the fact that happened meant that you now exist. Because that guy killed the father.
That's why.
Yes.
She now was married to me, and you.
But
now
I mean,
are
it's your
alive.
mom's dad, and she's cranky about her dead grandpa.
Okay.
About your
Sure.
dead grandpa. So
Yeah,
you got to
yeah.
go
All right.
revenge. I'm glad that you guys are tracking with all the familial stuff.
Yeah.
It'll get sorted out a little bit more as we go
AJ,
down.
We're professionals.
So he does. He goes and kills Hrothmar, the other suitor. And then they have a weird conversation with a giant woman who
so
they
just kills the suitors. Just shows up
Just like
and
that.
It just
like,
shows up.
"Meh."
And some of these like exploits are not well fleshed out. It's
right.
just like, and then he goes. There's a battle, and he kills the guy.
Did he get
thing.
that sword?
Yeah, he got the
Oh,
sword.
he got the sword. Okay.
So Helgi and Svava get married, right? Remember the Viking.
Oh, he marries Valkyrie.
The lady, the Valkyrie lady,
Oh,
right?
sweet.
He marries Svava. Turns out she's really cool.
Okay.
She stays at home with her dad while he goes out on raids, right? So she's now a married Valkyrie, and she just sort of stays home, and he goes out and raids. One night, Hethin, Helgi's brother,
Okay.
so he meets a giant woman on wolfback using snakes as reins.
Okay.
Right? So she's riding this giant wolf, and she's like, "Yeah!" whipping him with snakes. And she's like, "Hey there, Hethin. Looking pretty good, buddy. You wanna like hang out? There's a party hanging out like later
say
today.
no to that.
How about I go with you?" And he's like, "No, you're freaking ugly."
Yeah.
And he turns her down, and she says, "You will be cursed because of this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta let
You gotta be nice
you
to
gotta
the
let
snake lady.
the wolf riding snake woman down a little softly.
Yeah. And so she's like, when men are making oaths, you will do something you regret. So he goes to that party that night, he gets a little tossed, and then he makes an oath that he will take Svava, his brother's lover, as his own.
Oh man,
That's bad.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to take that Valkyrie. Woo! And that's an oath. It's binding.
oath.
He knows he has to. And so he totally regrets it the next morning, and he wanders out into the wilderness. And eventually, after a long time, he meets Helgi again, just sort of on the road. And he's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I made this oath. I don't know what to do about it. Like, I'm supposed to I have to do it. I got to kill you or something. And Helgi's like, dude, it's super chill. No big deal. I have to duel this king. Yeah, I think it's one of that suitor's sons, Hrothmar.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it was a son of Hrothmar and had challenged him to a duel, and he's like, this guy's going to wreck me. I got no chance against this son of Hrothmar, so it's probably good you said you'd take my wife because I'm going to be dead soon. And it's good that you take her, right?
Oh, okay.
And so he's like,
That
oh,
worked out.
dope. And he's like, I actually think that was probably my guardian spirit, the snake wolfy lady.
Wow.
Is probably the one, like, she probably kind of tricked you into it to save my wife from loneliness.
Wow.
And he's like, oh, all right.
Is that what
Great.
happens?
So yeah,
It's a glass half full way of
Yeah, it's
looking
a
at
really
it.
it really
optimistic.
is.
Yeah.
Seems like Helgi has a great attitude. And so he does go to this duel and he gets killed,
Oh.
right? And here are his last words. I ask you, Svava, my bride, if you will heed my dying words, that you will sleep by Hethin, that you will love my young brother. And she says, Helgi, when you gave me rings, I said this. I said I would never willingly in my life put my arms around another man if you died. Kiss me, Svava, said Hethin. I won't ever return to Rogheim or Rothosfjall before I've avenged Helgi, Hjorvarth's son. That man was the best beneath the sun. It is said that Helgi and Svava were reincarnated. And that's the end of the tale.
What?
So
We don't know
they
anything.
kind of get together, and Hethi's like, I'm gonna avenge him. And then we sort of move to the next poem, which is another poem of Helgi after he's been reincarnated. And this is where the story kind of begins in proper, where the actual family begins. So Helgi is born to a great king named Sigmund and his wife Borghild.
Okay.
Borghild. This is really
I love
good.
that you giggle at these.
This is funny. Yeah.
So Sigmund is kind of the great grandfather progenitor of this whole family of the Volsungs.
Okay.
So Sigmund is like, you can remember him as the great distant king, right? And when Helgi was born, the Norns themselves attended. Remember, they're like the Viking version of the Fates, right? So they kind of hang out. They come and they're like, look, we're going to set up his kingdom. They take these big golden bands and just lay them on the ground. And they're like, this is his kingdom. And apparently predict great things for this kid, Helgi, as he grows up. And a raven nearby is
Wait,
like...
pause.
Yeah.
Helgi's reincarnated?
Yes, this is the second reincarnation
Second
of
coming of
This is the
Helgi.
second coming of Helgi.
All right. Okay. Gotcha.
And they know he's Helgi?
He's named Helgi.
named-
But were they like, Do they know the story? The whole bird and son and brother and
Oh, like do
snake
Sigmund and does his family know that he's Helgi? I don't think so.
Oh,
that's
This is just another Helgi. What probably
Gotcha.
happened is that they were two different tales about guys named Helgi, and then as they got told, people were just
became-
like, I bet this is the same
one,
guy.
right.
And so it became a story of reincarnation. So a raven predicts that he will kill a lot of people and feed all the wolves. They'll be like, there's a lot of that where they say, this man will be a friend to wolves. And that means he's just going to smoke a lot of dudes.
And then leave him there for the wolves to
And then
eat.
leave him there for the wolves to
there
eat,
you go.
right? Wolf stuff.
Yeah. What's with these angry birds, though? I don't understand. 'Cause-
Man, birds are coming into the story a ton.
yeah, what's that about? Anyway.
It's a game.
It gets even
Angry
better.
Birds.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, so he disguises himself as some guy,
Yep.
Hamal, son of Hagal. You don't really need to know him, to go spy on one of his dad's enemies, hunting. So remember, this is Helgi, born of Sigmund, going to spy on Sigmund's enemy, hunting.
Helgi 2.0.
Helgi 2.0, disguised as Hamal.
Okay.
So he goes and he kind of spies for a while, and then as he's leaving, he's like, "You chumps! There's like a wolf in the hen hound in like the hen pen.
It's been Helgi all along.
It's been Helgi all along."
right.
So he like tells that to one of the servants, and then he kind of takes off, and they're like, "Wah!" And so they go and they try to find him. They're going to find this Helgi character and get him in trouble. So they go to Hagel's house, right, where he was pretending to be Hamel the son, remember? And Helgi is there, and he needs to kind of get away with this. So he dresses up like a slave girl. And as you can imagine, strapping young Viking boy does not look much like a slave girl.
This happened in the last story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sword.
same, very similar story. So they see him,
like
and,
it's a
and
motif.
the guy that's trying to find him is named Blind the Crafty.
Okay.
Blind the Crafty.
Not crap. Okay.
Crafty the Blind?
Nope.
Okay.
Blind.
Can you see?
I don't know. I would actually say yes,
Okay.
because he recognizes the fierce eyes of Helgi. He looks at the slave girl, and she's like, "Nah, nah," and she like looks him in the eye, like with a lot of drama.
Yeah, it's like,
And
something
he's
wrong
like,
with your slave girl.
Yeah, your slave girl's got some real fierce eyes, and they explain it away by saying that it's just a captured Valkyrie. Like, oh, we captured a Valkyrie. Yeah, she used to be like a big warrior, but now she's a slave girl, so that's why she's got fierce eyes. And he's like, that makes sense. And so
He buys it.
he totally buys it.
Okay.
And then when Helgi turns 15, he goes back and kills King Hunding, his dad's enemy.
Okay.
Right?
Which is what he was supposed to
15
do.
years old.
Man.
Right?
Well, wasn't he 14 when he got married to a Valkyrie the last time around?
Yeah, well,
He said-
he was young. In
Yeah.
this one, he's actually around 15 when he gets married to a Valkyrie.
Yeah, okay.
So on the way back from killing King Hunding, he sees another Valkyrie, and he's like, "Hey, girl, you gonna go home with the warriors tonight?" And she's like, "Well, we don't really have a whole lot of time for like drinking mead with you guys. We're Valkyrie. We have stuff to do." And he's like, "But you're pretty cute and stuff." And turns out this is Sigrun, the Valkyrie who answers, and she's the reincarnation of Svava, his old
what?
wife.
That's
right?
cool.
So Sigrun is the brand new Valkyrie. It's the same sort of story, right? They
Right.
fly past. That's why I think it was the same story, just different iterations.
Right.
So she flies past, and he's like, "Hey, girl, you want to drink with us?" And she's like, "I can't right now, but all right, you know."
Does she tell him
I'll
about
think
his
about
sword
it.
again, too?
Well, So he goes and he kills the sons of Hunding, right? Because those four kids, they're like, "You killed our dad. Give us money." And he's like, "I don't want to give you money. I'll just kill you instead." So he kills the four sons of Hunding. And then Sigrun, turns out she has been promised to somebody else. She can't marry Helgi because she is promised to King Hothbrod.
Okay. Okay.
King Hothbrod. I'm going to read you a quote about how she feels about King Hothbrod. She says, "My father promised me to Hothbrod, the grim son of Granmar, but I tell you, Helgi, I said to that good king that he seemed no better to me than a tomcat. Now, he will come for me in a few short nights unless you invite him to battle or take me by force from my father." So she's like, "Look, I'm promised to this guy who's a huge dope and I don't like him, so why don't you just kill him instead?"
Wow.
And Helgi
He's like, sure.
being the like hot-blooded young Viking that he is like, "Great.
Yeah.
You cute." So Sigrun sort of protects their ships as he sails with his brother to go kill King Hothbrod in this place called, I think it's Freckestein, but I always read it as Freakestein. So he goes to kill King Hothbrod in Freakestein. All right, so you guys following along so far?
Oh,
Sure.
So
yeah, I'm dialed in.
So Helgi, born of Sigmund,
So
killed
Helgi
his
2.0.
dad's enemy
Yep.
and his sons, and in the process has met this hot young Valkyrie, Sigrun.
Yep.
And Sigrun is the reincarnation of his old wife.
Yes.
Turns out they probably don't know this.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering if they knew that. But
Right. So they go and Helgi and his brother Sinfjotli who he will
more.
actually show up again, the tale of Sinfjotli. And they sort of like park on the shore, and King Guthmund comes out, and he's like, what are you guys doing here? What's the story? You look like a bunch of sissies. And he's like, oh, well, you're a sissy. You like live in a pile of stones. And he's like, no, you're a sissy. And they just sort of like trade insults for a while. And eventually Helgi's like, dude, you can't, like, these guys have proved that they'll draw swords. It's good not to insult nobles. Like, it's kind of a nice little, you should never trade insults with nobles, especially when they appear brave. And so he kind of calms things down, and they decide to go fight. So Guthmund goes back, finds Hofbrod, right? The guy who's Sigrun's supposed to marry.
Yes.
And he's like, hey man, we got an army coming. So they're like, all right, let's suit up. And so they have this big, huge fight. Helgi fights really well. The Valkyries help on Helgi's side, and King Hofbrod is killed. Right? He does the job. He frees his girl. But in the process, he also kills Bragi and Hogni, Sigrun's brother and dad.
What were they doing there?
Yeah.
I don't know. They're just fighting on King Hofbrod's side. Well, remember,
She was going to marry
King
him.
Hofbrod
Yeah.
was the one that her
Whoops.
dad had promised her to.
Right.
So this is kind of a little bit of betrayal.
Man,
So
could have given a heads up though.
Yeah.
yeah, and Helgi kind of he doesn't pull the
know?
punches. He sits her down and he's like, I've killed King Hofbrod,
wow.
but also I have killed
Your dad and your brother.
Bragi and Hogni, your dad and your brother. And
Right.
she's like, you know what? That's a bummer. She cries for a little bit and she says, but let my family fall in battle if it means I can sleep in your arms.
Oh,
Didn't they just meet each other too?
Wow.
I don't. Anyway.
Hey, man, it's a passionate time.
man.
Is that
that
what it
is
is?
like,
Sure,
that's
great.
a metal ballad if I ever heard
I'm
one.
telling you, this is the. I've said it once and I've said it
It's so
before.
metal,
It's
yeah.
the most heavy metal
Let
mythology.
my family die in battle if it means I can
it-
sleep in your arms.
My dude, it gets way, way worse. We are only the tip of the iceberg here in crazy family sorrow.
Okay.
It gets so much more heavy metal. Okay.
Crazy.
So Dag, also a brother of Sigrun,
Okay.
survived the battle. So he kills one of her brothers and her dad, but doesn't kill Dag. And Dag is like,
Has to avenge, right?
Helgi friggin' killed my dad and stole my sister. So he prays to Odin for a spear. Notice Odin's like, sure, borrow my spear. And he goes and he kills Helgi.
Oh, dang
Do you have to like do a deposit on the spear?
I don't know.
it. How do you know you're going to get
Well, remember,
that back?
Odin is looking for the best warriors. So if
Oh,
someone's
that's
like,
right.
give me a spear, he's like, yeah, boy, go for it. Like,
See what you got,
kill
buddy.
yourself, get killed. Nice. I'm happy to find good warriors.
Yeah.
And Sigrun curses Dag for killing her lover, right? And she actually lays some pretty...
Wait. Dag, what does Dag do?
Kills Helgi.
Dag killed Helgi.
What?
Yeah.
Helgi's dead again?
He died again. Yeah.
Yeah, second death of
Aw.
Helgi.
bummer.
Nobody's going to live very long in this whole thing, Graham. Everybody's
I
going
thought
to
they
get
were gonna,
roasted
like,
sometime
you
or
know,
another.
have long love.
Happily ever after.
Yeah.
I don't think there are very many of those in this book,
Yeah.
if any.
Yep.
Poor Helgi.
Poor Helgi. All right, so Helgi gets roasted by Dag, and then Sigrun obviously is real mad, and she says this is her curse to her brother Dag. All your oaths, the oaths you swore to Helgi, the oaths you swore by the sea, and the cool stone of Un will come back to bite you. I don't know what the cool stone
I was
of Un
gonna
is,
ask.
but
Yeah,
it sounds
really cool.
really
Sounds
ominous.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. A ship will not sail if you're on it, even if it has the most favorable winds. A horse will not run if you're on it, even if it could save you from pursuing enemies. No sword you draw will cut unless it cuts your own head off. I would only be avenged for Helgi's death if you were an outlaw living in the woods, deprived of all your property and all joy. You wouldn't even eat unless you caught your own raw meat. And Dag is like, you're mad, sister. You're out of your wits when you speak such curses against your own brother. Odin alone causes all evil. He's the one who causes war between kin. And so he's like, girl, you're nuts. And then she curses him, and I think
So,
he just
like,
turns out kind of fine.
Bones aren't going to move. Horses aren't going to run.
Right.
Yep.
But
Does that happen? We don't know.
We don't really know.
The story
It
just
seems
ends,
like
right?
Dag just kind of hangs out. I don't actually.
Does Dag
I can't
return the
remember what
spear?
happens to Dag.
you're really intent on the returning.
Well, I'm trying to
I think Dag is just kind of okay.
I'm trying to lay the groundwork for a really good Dag Nabbit joke, but
Okay. Well, Sigrun is now bereft of her beloved Helgi.
Yeah.
Right. The reincarnation of Svava, beautiful, beautiful Valkyrie. She's lost her best love, and so she sits and she's like just kind of wasting away. And one of her serving women
yeah.
is out at Helgi's grave, and she sees Helgi ride up.
Oh,
and
what?
she's like, "Whoa,
Is he reincarnated
Helgi,
again? Yeah.
what's happening? Aren't you supposed to be dead?" He's like covered in armor with
Wow.
blood all over it, and he's like, "Yes, I am dead. I've been to Valhalla. Odin asked me to help rule everything, but he's kind of sleeping right now, so I took a little bit of a holiday to come hang out on Earth for a little bit." And she's like, "Crazy." So she goes and she grabs Sigrun, and she's like, "Hey, your husband is out at his burial mound.
Right.
He's dead. You should probably go see him.
Right.
And so Sigrun goes out there and she's like, she's like, buddy, I'm so glad you're here. She says, I want to kiss you, my unliving king, before you take your bloody armor off. That was before you take your bloody armor off.
Seriously.
And he says, okay. And they kind of spend a night together. He says, but I can drink happily of Odin's good mead, even if I have lost my lands and my love. No one will sing a sorrowful song for me, even if I have wounds on my chest. For my wife Sigrun is in my mound. The Valkyrie lies by me, though I am dead. And they kind of spend a night together, and it's awesome. They have a really good time together. And then
he goes back.
He leaves, and he never returns to his burial mound, even though she watches it every day, and she just doesn't care for life anymore and just sort of wastes away and then dies.
Bummer.
And that is the end of Helgi and Sigrun.
But Helgi's also kind of having the time of his life in Valhalla, right?
Oh, yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
She'll,
I guess will she go to Valhalla also?
Well, she didn't die in battle, but she is a Valkyrie. So I don't know how that works.
All right, and Valkyries are mortal? They
are human women, but they can fly.
Okay, yeah, okay. So they regular lifespan, they just die. Okay. I wasn't sure if they were demigods or something like that, but...
Yeah.
Okay.
Be realistic, Thomas.
Okay. So remember... Do you remember Sinfjotli?
Sure.
I know I'm throwing a lot of names at you guys.
Sinfjotli is the brother of Hagrid.
Helgi. So close. So, yes, Sinfjotli, brother of Helgi. All right, so just to review, we've had one Helgi who died, got reincarnated as a second Helgi, son of Sigmund. He's got a brother, Sinfjotli.
Yeah, and then someone
who likes to sass people.
And then someone showed up in bloody armor claiming that he was Helgi. And Sigurd was like, my husband.
And he's dudes, like, watch this.
He's like, my voice changed in Valhalla. But Odin said I can't take my armor off.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she's like, I want to kiss you before you take your armor off. He's like, whoof. Dodged a bullet there. All right, so meanwhile, Sinfjotli, so remember Borghild, Sigmund's second wife?
Yeah.
Sure.
So Sigmund's wife, Borghild, she had a stepson, Sinfjotli, and she had a brother. Turns out they both wanted to woo the same woman.
Okay.
And so Sinfjotli killed his uncle, or step-uncle, her brother. So Sinfjotli's dad married a girl.
Yes.
Yep.
Tried to woo the same woman as her brother, killed her brother. So basically his like stepmom is really mad at him for killing her brother.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So she decided to, like, she didn't want him back in the house anymore, but Sigmund is like, girl, relax. He's my son. You have to let him in. Here's some stuff. I'll give you things if you let him back in. So she says, okay.
Here's a gold cup.
Yeah, here's a gold cup.
Sure.
Let him back in. So she decides she's going to poison him instead.
Oh, pff.
So she brings him a cup just filled to the brim with poison. It's very
not
clear.
even like hiding it.
It's like smoking.
So clear that it's like all milky and stuff. I kid you not. It really says that he goes, hey, this is really cloudy. Dad, do you want to taste this first?
No.
So he gives it to Sigmund, and legend has it that Sigmund is impervious to poison.
Oh.
Downed it.
He's just so hardy.
Yeah.
Like he's impervious to poison on the outside and on the inside.
Good.
So he's like, boy, I got you. And he just goes glomp and drinks the whole thing.
And he's totally
no
fine.
problems.
Good, great.
And Borghild is like, dang
Who was
it.
that, like, the Greek hero who was impervious to poison? Was it Mithridates? No, who's the one that, like, took little bits of poison every day, and then when he got poison, it didn't work, and he was like, take that,
That was
chumps.
Prince Humperdinck, I think.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Iocane powder. I'd bet my life on it. Okay.
Mowage.
Mithridates, is that what you said?
Is it Mithridates?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice. Good
Nailed
memory.
it.
So Borghild tries again. She brings him
Humperdinck.
another cup full of poison. And he's like, this is clearly
Take two.
also poison. And Sigmund is like, fine. And so he drains another cup full of poison. Totally fine. No
Still,
problems.
okay.
And she's like,
Maybe
here we go again. And so
Third
she
time,
brings
right.
him a third cup filled with poison. And he's like, Dad? And Dad's like, it's time for you to wet your whistle, son. I ain't going to drink another cup of poison. And he's like, okay, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, drink it. Wet your mustache.
Uh-oh.
So he says, wet your mustache.
Does he really?
Is, I
That's
think, a direct quote from the book. And so he puts it to his lips and instantly dies. Just like no hesitation, drops down dead. And he's like, rats.
Yeah, seriously.
Turns out his kids were not impervious to poison on the inside, though they were on the outside, just in case you're wondering.
Really? Like,
Yeah.
if you got hit with a poison arrow or something, you're all good?
You'd be fine.
If you'd,
Yeah,
like,
not a big
one of
deal.
those- if you like touch one of those frogs.
Yeah, you'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is real sad, and he picks up his son's body and sort of walks around with it for a long time. And then he eventually marries a lady named Hjordis and has a son named Sigurth. And then Sigmund dies in battle against Hunding's sons. Remember Hunding, his old enemy that Helgi killed?
He killed the sons of, or
he killed, and then he also killed the sons, but apparently he had a lot of sons.
Okay.
And so he comes back and kills Sigmund eventually. So the great head dude of the race, the great progenitor, has died to Hunding's sons. Okay,
Gotcha.
So in review, we've got Sigmund, gave birth to Helgi and Sinfjotli. Helgi died to Dag, his wife's brother, and Sinfjotli died to poison from his stepmom.
Yes.
Okay. And then eventually, Sigmund also gave birth to another guy named Sigurd, right?
yes.
And then he died in battle. So Sigurd is the next kind of guy that we're going to take the rest of the
And
time.
Sigurd is like the big hero, isn't he?
Sigurd is a big, so I feel like the really big heroes are Helgi and Sigurd. Those are like the two main characters. So we've just sort of finished with the Helgi episode and we're moving on to the Sigurd episode.
Gotcha.
Are you guys enjoying it so far?
Yeah, that's good.
I'm
Yeah.
dialed in.
Isn't this a pretty fun story?
I do.
Although I'm like looking at my coffee a little warily with all this poison talk.
So it begins with the whole Sigurd saga begins with a lengthy poem where he asks his uncle about the future. And he's like, Uncle, tell me what's going to happen. And the uncle tells him a whole bunch of good stuff. And then he's like, and that's the end of the story. And Sigurd is like, wait a minute, that can't be the end of the story. And so he tells him a bunch of spoilers. So if you're going to read this, I recommend that you skip
the first
that
story,
one, that first episode where he kind of tells him everything that's going to happen. And then go back and read it later because it'll not only make more sense later, but it'll save you from a few spoilers.
Okay.
So he asks his uncle, we can skip that one and I'll just kind of tell you the story of what happens. So Sigurd first goes and gets a horse named Granny.
Granny the horse?
Granny the horse, Grani. So that's fun.
That's good.
And then he goes to stay with kind of a foster dad, because remember his dad is killed,
Right.
named Regin, son of Hrethmar. You don't need to know Hrethmar. Well, just know this Regin guy. Regin's going to be a pretty big character.
Okay.
So Regin is good with his hands. He's a dwarf in height, so he's a real short guy.
okay.
He's wise, grim, and skilled with magic.
Okay.
Cool.
Just good at stuff. And so the story kind of really begins with Regin's parents. So Regin sits down Sigurd and says, let me tell you a story about my dad. So there's once this pond called Andveri's Falls where there's a whole ton of fish. It's a real nice spot.
Okay.
Right? And Regin has a brother named Otter.
Otter?
Otter. O-T-T-E-R.
So like
Who can turn
The animal?
into
Is that?
an otter?
an otter.
Okay.
Hence the name.
Hence the name.
Or weird coincidence.
Or like a weird,
Got that name
let's
first,
name him
right,
Otter.
yeah,
And he's like,
sure.
poof, they're like, wow, we nailed it. Good job. So he actually goes and visits Andveri's Falls, and he's like eating the fish, just hanging out as an otter, and he's got a salmon, and he's just munching the salmon. He's got his eyes all closed, and he's really happy. And yes, these are all details given in the poem.
Good.
And it just turns out that right then the Aesir are visiting, and this is Loki and Thor and his brothers. It was actually Loki, Odin, and Honir. And so they see this otter sort of munching on a salmon.
Happy otter.
And they're like, we can kill that thing. So they chuck a rock at it, and they bonk its brains out. And because it wasn't really looking, it had its eyes closed. And then they make a bag out of its skin. And then they take it and they go visit the nearby king. And they're like, check out this sweet otter bag. And the king is like, that's my son. He freaks out. And he's like, oh my gosh, you killed my kid. And they're like, ugh. They kind of like do the shirt, the collar pull, like, whoopsie, didn't mean to kill your kid. And he says, all right, in restitution, you need to fill this otter skin bag with gold and then cover it with like gems and gold on the outside. So that's your task. And they're like, we don't
This
really
is a
want
human
to.
king giving orders to the gods?
Yes.
Okay.
They killed his otter kid.
I know, I get that. But
They killed his otter kid. And I mean, he was a pretty powerful king. And still, like, you don't want a king being bitter against you all the time. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So they go back to the falls and they catch Andvari, the guy who owns the falls, who can turn into a pikefish. So they catch him as a pikefish, and Loki's like, you don't look like any kind of normal fish. Normal fish know how to avoid nets, you stupid fish. And he's like, give me all your gold, Andvari.
Wait, so Loki can tell that he wasn't a normal fish,
Because he
couldn't
caught him
tell.
really
but he
easily.
couldn't tell that the otter was.
I
not a
know,
normal
I
otter.
know. It's the consistency is a real problem. So he catches this fish, Andvari, and he's like, look, man, give me all your gold, you magical fish. Apparently, the owner of the falls is also filthy, filthy, filthy rich.
Okay.
So Andvari says, fine, but my treasure will bring sorrow to 8 kings.
Oh.
This is not going to go well. And he's like, I don't freaking care. I'm not keeping it. He's like, I'm giving it to a different king. Like, I don't give 2 rips who this gold goes to. Give me your gold, fish. And so he gives up the gold, including a ring. I mentioned this because it has a cool name called Andvaranaut.
Cool.
right? It's Andvarius's ring, and so or Andvari's ring, and
This is
so
not.
Andvarinot, the ring. It's kind of cool.
It is.
So they take the gold, they fill the whole bag, and then they put the ring on it to cover the very last whisker, and they go and give it to the king, and the king is like, nice. And then Loki's like, look, man, this gold is bad news. It's going to make everybody real sad. Like, your kids are going to kill you for it. It's not going to bring anybody any happiness. Like, you will probably die because of this gold. And the king's like, ain't nobody afraid of you. Yeah, I quote. Hold on, page 236.
Ain't nobody afraid of you.
He says, Loki says, it seems to me that it will only get worse. Men will fight over this gold. This gold is fated, I think, to cause hateful news for kings still unborn. This gold, said Hreathmar, will be mine as long as I live. I'm not afraid at all of your threats. Go home. And so he just kind of boots him out.
Yeah.
And he takes the gold. And can you imagine how did his kids, Regan, and he's got another kid that you'll meet in a minute, feel about this gold? His dad just come into a huge inheritance.
They want that money, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there something weird about their? No. The blood oath is normal. So that side of it, that is not weird. That he basically is okay with the death of his son because he got gold.
Yeah, that's
a
very
normal
regular.
thing. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
But they would want the money.
Kind of weirded out that like their brother is now like a bank account. Like, it's like
Well, it's the skin of their brother,
yeah,
right?
the skin of their
what
brother
holds-
is holding all his gold.
I just feel like that's so metal. It just is. If I was a Viking, I'd be like, yes, this is my brother skin bag. Like, that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really intimidating. All right. So Fafnir, Regan's brother, and Regan go and ask this king for all the gold, right? They're like, hey, Dad, you want to give us a little bit of the treasure? And the dad's like, no, it's my treasure.
Whoa. So Regan, his brother is the bag.
So he had one brother, Otter, and then another brother,
Gotcha.
Fafnir.
Gotcha.
So Regan the dwarf and Fafnir,
the magic dwarf.
The magic dwarf, they go and ask for all the gold. I'm so glad you guys are tracking so well.
Trying.
Right? I'm sorry, it's a lot of names and it's a lot of story. Am I doing okay in like summarizing and keeping everybody tracking?
Does Regan not realize that
Wouldn't he get the gold?
this is a bad, is he
right.
not smart enough to realize that this gold is bad news?
It's still gold, man.
Okay.
I feel like the lesson is that
Fair.
gold is always bad news.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right? If you're a rich man, you got to deal with people trying to kill you all the time and take your stuff.
Probably true.
So they
why we're
decide to kill their dad while he sleeps. And they do.
Oh, bummer.
Fafnir and Regan kill their dad, and they take possession of it. Except Fafnir takes all of it. And Regan's
What?
like, "Hey man, can I get some of the gold?" And Fafnir's like, "No." And then he leaves, and he absconds with the gold, and apparently turns into a dragon. Okay. So we have three brothers: Otter the otter, Regan the dwarf, and Fafnir the dragon.
Great.
And Fafnir the dragon not only he's a dragon, but he's got a helmet apparently that scares everyone. It's a very scary helmet that he flashes around and it freaks everybody out. He's got a big helmet of scare.
I feel like the dragon thing would be enough.
I was about to say, like-
what do you need the helmet for at that point?
I'm also very confused about why the helmet is necessary.
There's a dragon with a helmet on? That's adorable.
That's actually.
I
hilarious.
feel like
Yeah.
it's in an RPG when you find like the helmet that causes all enemies to run on a hit or
Yeah.
something. Like it's a helmet of fear. That's
But
what
if
he's
you're
got.
like born into this family and everyone gets this like cool ability, like
Yeah.
your brother's an otter and gets to swim around, your other brother's a dragon, and you're
a dwarf.
But a magical
man.
one
Oh,
that's really good
yes.
with your hands, right? And so Regan. This is where we pick up Sigurd with Regan, right? He has lost the gold.
And Sigurd is like, I'm gonna get that gold.
Well, that's the thing is Regan is like, I've got this brand new kid. Comes from a really good family, right? Comes
Sigurd.
from the
Yeah.
yes, Sigurd. He comes from the great family of Helgi and Sigrun or what's the first guy's name? Sigurd, I think. Yeah, no, Sigmund. I always mess that one up. So comes from this great family, Sigmund, Helgi. Sounds awesome. So why don't I get this kid to go get the gold for me?
Right.
So he makes a sword for Sigurd named. Any guesses?
Should I know this?
You're gonna love it.
I have literally no idea.
Graham.
Oh yeah, really?
Wow, that's good.
It's Gram.
I'm a sword.
But good enough. And apparently it's amazing. I have to read you the quote about Graham. You ready? So he tests it.
Yeah.
Regan made a sword called Graham for Sigurd. Sorry, I bumped my microphone. This sword was so sharp that he put its blade in the river Rhine and let a tuft of wool flow downstream into the blade, and the wool split as if it were water. With this sword, Sigurd cut Regan's anvil in half.
Wow.
After this, Regan encouraged Sigurd to kill Fafnir. All right, so he's like, great, I made you a sword, now go off my dragon brother and get me some gold.
Right.
Right? And he says, well, no. I'm going to go instead kill the sons of Hunding and find vengeance for my dad. which he does. So I think by now all the sins of hunting are toast.
Okay.
And then he comes back and actually decides to
Get
go.
the dragon.
In the meantime, we get some weird advice from Odin about omens heading to battle. Like, you watch out for witches on the way.
I mean,
Yes.
that's good advice.
Like, that's
Yeah.
really good advice. He's
Yeah,
like,
sure.
you look for old ladies sitting on benches because they're probably witches.
And after the battle, like Macbeth.
Or like, here's a good omen, here's a bad omen. He kind of goes through the whole thing.
I feel like that's really helpful.
Yeah, we don't need to go over it, but I mean, Odin telling about omens is pretty useful.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Sigurd heads off to kill this dragon, Fafnir. So he climbs in a hole near where the dragon lives, just kind of digs a hole, plunks himself down in it. Maybe only the top of his head is really visible, right? So Fafnir comes out, and he's just doing dragon stuff, shoots a bunch of poison all over. One of those things he shoots poison over is Sigurd's head. Apparently, not a problem. It's never mentioned again. Just says he puts poison all over his head. And then as he slithers over the pit where Sigurd is
What kind of
sitting,
dragon is this?
Is this like the small dragon, like the Beowulf dragon?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
He's wearing a helmet. He's spitting poison. I don't know what's
I don't
going
think
on.
I know what a dragon is.
And so Sigurd shoves his sword up out of the hole, and the dragon kind of slithers across it, and it like gets him in the heart. And then he kind of pops out of the hole, and Fafnir's like, "Whoa, you got me good. What's your name, young soldier?" And Sigurd is like, "I better not tell this dragon because he'll curse me." And so he's like, "I don't have a mom. I'm just, I popped out of nowhere. I'm a motherless son. That's what I am." And he's like, "That's pretty." The dragon's like, how did you? Dragon is
Justify yourself.
understandably confuddled. He's like, "What in the world? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, maybe you don't know my family." "Okay, maybe I'll tell you. My name's Sigurd." So he does tell him. I'm telling you, it's the most entertaining stuff.
Does he
So
get
he does
cursed?
tell him his name, and the dragon doesn't really curse him.
Good.
But they do. He does, like, they have a weird conversation about random trivia. He's like, what's the island called where the giants and the gods will have their last showdown? And he's like, "Oh, I know that." And they just start like going back and forth. Then Fafnir warns him about some stuff, and they talk about cowardice, and they just have like this sort of long chat as Fafnir slowly dies.
Okay.
And then he says, "Hey man, you don't want my gold. It's bad news." And he's like, "Yeah, shut up, dragon." And so then the dragon dies.
It takes the gold, right?
And then and then Regan pops up, right? Regan's like,
yeah.
"Hey, good job there, buddy. I was off doing other stuff, but I'm back. Great job killing the dragon."
He takes the gold.
And then he sucks all the blood from the dragon's wound.
Sorry, what?
Yep.
Fafnir does?
Regan sucks it
Regan
from
does.
Fafnir's
Yeah.
chest. And then he's like, "Sigurd, could you do me a solid and cook up that heart for me? I'd like to eat it after sucking all the blood out of that wound." And Sigurd is like,
It's your brother, man.
Yeah, seriously.
"Yeah.
What the heck?
Also, I mean, I did all the work.
Yeah.
Like, you
I
weren't
want the heart. Yeah.
you were like, I want to eat the heart. You weren't even here, bro." And then Regan points out, he's like, "Hey man, you wouldn't have been able to do it without that sword." And he's like,
That is true.
"All right, fair." Well, then they have a long conversation about courage, but he's like, "All right, fine, I'll cook up the heart." So Regan passes out. He's taking a nap. Sigurd is cooking up the heart, and then to see if it's hot enough, I kid you not, that's maybe my favorite part in all the tale. He tests to see if it's hot enough with his finger, and it's really hot. He's like, "Ooh, it's really hot dragon heart." So then he puts his finger in his mouth, and the dragon blood on the finger gives him the ability to understand birds.
It's all about birds. I don't get this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But so is that what
start talking about birds? What is he?
Reagan wanted when he sucked all the dragon blood out?
It's unclear.
Is that where his magic comes from?
I imagine that there was some magical properties to it. I mean, if a finger of dragon blood will do the trick,
Yeah.
then
Whole dragon.
a whole
thing,
dragon,
right,
like that's
yeah.
that's a thing.
a-
And so he sits there.
You need a nap, too,
And
though.
there are birds flying around overhead, and the birds are like, "Man, poor Sigurd. He doesn't know that Regan's totally just going to kill him and take all the gold."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, for reals?" And they're like, "What he should do?" All these birds are just giving advice
They're
to
just
each
having
other. They're just having a chuckle.
Right.
And they're like, "You know what he should do is probably kill Regan,
Yeah.
right? And just take all the gold for himself." Right? I think that's a thing. And then what he can do is go and save this Valkyrie that's up in this tower surrounded by fire.
Oh.
And he's
okay.
like,
There's a plan.
"I'm listening."
Yep.
Okay. So he goes ahead and pops Regan's head off. He just kills him real fast
I
while
hear
he's
you,
sleeping.
birds.
Yeah, I hear you, birds.
Man, so is that what birds do today?
just
As we're
talk all the
sitting
time,
here
yeah.
and they're not singing beautiful songs, they're just like giving really good advice.
Well, they're just huge gossips.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Just like if for us, we are like their soaps, like
Yeah.
their soap operas, and so they're just like, you know what? I don't know why AJ's teaching Gilgamesh today. You know how he should be teaching this, and they just chat it up outside my window.
And did they give good advice? Isn't that bad advice?
It was great. I mean, I think Regan was planning on killing him.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll never know.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, why share the gold? You don't have to. He's going to
Sure.
eat the dragon heart and then off his foster kid.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Anyway, Sigurd takes the advice. He kills
Cool.
Regan.
Right.
He eats the dragon heart, and he goes and he
Finds Valkyrie?
piles up a whole bunch of gold, and then he heads off to find the Valkyrie. All right, how am I doing on time? Oh boy, I'm not going to get through this tale.
Okay.
We'll
Do
do
part
the
two.
we'll do the best we can. Oh man, I might. Let's hustle. We'll get through this. Okay. So he goes and finds this Valkyrie. Her name is. Oh man, I got to say this right. Hold on. The name of the poem is Sigurdrifumal.
Yes.
I think it's. Oh man, I didn't write the name down. I'm a dope. Sigrid.
Is the Valkyrie's name?
Yeah. Anyway, he finds this Valkyrie. It's unclear. I didn't record the name because she's kind of less important. It's unclear whether she is the same character as a different character later.
Okay.
It seems like they're the same person, but they may not be the same person. And so anyway, he saves this Valkyrie. He finds her passed out on the floor, takes off the helmet, and he's like, "Oh, it's a chick." And then
Wait, it was like a wall of fire?
yeah, he just rides through it. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Finds this tower enwreathed in flame, rides in, finds her like this big warrior on the floor, pops off the helmet. And he's like, "Hey, it's a girl." And then the chainmail is so close to her skin that it looks like it has grown together. Oh, wow. So he cuts it off first down the center and then down the arms. And she's
Presumptuous.
like, she pops off and she's like, "Oh, thank you. Odin cursed me to lay here because I helped the wrong side win in one of the battles." And he's real cranky. And then they toast and she gives him a bunch of advice. So this is the advice given to Sigurd. Number 1. Don't avenge yourself on your family.
Wow.
Number 2, be true.
Okay.
Number 3,
Good advice.
don't talk to idiots or be quiet when they mock you because like you look like an idiot.
Sure.
Number 4, you watch out for witches.
All this stuff about witches.
I mean, it's just good
It
advice.
is good advice.
It's real good advice. Number 5, don't try to seduce pretty women sitting on benches.
Specifically
Are there witches?
I think so. Just
Okay.
cute girls on benches, leave them
away.
alone.
Okay.
That's what she says.
Leave them be.
Yep, leave them be. Don't fight your enemy while you're drunk.
Good.
And then if you have a dispute with courageous men, seek the fight before they burn you while you sleep. Like if you know they're courageous and you're having some sort of dispute, like you don't go to sleep and sort of let them have one up on you. You go seek the fight out.
If they're burning you while you're asleep, they're not that courageous.
That's true.
I mean, fire is really hot.
Yes.
It's
It
scary.
is kind of dangerous.
Okay. Number 8 is kind of like watch out for loose women and don't encourage the looseness of women.
Okay.
It's not very feminist
Sure.
language. Number 9, respect dead bodies.
Good.
Number 10, watch out for the kin of your enemy.
Yes.
That's very straightforward.
Yep.
And 11, avoid evil.
I mean,
Jack is a blanket statement.
that's great.
It's
Yeah.
pretty solid Viking advice.
Probably should have
right?
started there, but
It's
yeah.
really reminiscent of the Odin advice way back in the first part of the series.
Yeah.
Okay. The next several poems are all sort of on the same theme, and they're all kind of scattered, and there's a bunch of them. So I'm just going to kind of generally tell you the story. It's about the betrayal and death of Sigurd. So he, after killing the dragon, he goes and saves that
He's got all the gold in the sword.
Valkyrie. Yep, he's got a golden
Can't he, like,
sword.
retire? You know, it's like
He's in good shape. He's in real good shape to be a king.
grow some potatoes.
So he goes and he stays at this King Gyuki's house. Gjuki.
Yuki.
Gyuki.
Okay.
And he's got sons, Gunnar and Hogni. And they swear to become blood brothers. He stays and drinks for like a week.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're just like, "Oh, blood brothers forever." Yes. And it's just awesome. And so he's hanging out with them. And they offer him a wife, Guthrun. And turns out she's rad. And he marries. Oh, the name of the last Valkyrie, I have it written here, is Sigurdrifa.
Sigurd.
So he doesn't marry Sigurdrifa. He goes and he marries
She
this
just gave
other.
sweet advice.
Yeah, she just gave red advice. Maybe it's the same character as another person later, but we don't have to worry about it. So he marries Guthrun, and then they go and they try to woo Brunhilde. And
Who's Brunhilde?
she's a Hun. Brunhilde. She's actually sister of Attila.
Oh, really?
Oh, Rotro.
Attila
That's
the
the
Hun.
Hun.
Yeah, this is all like this is crazy because Attila the Hun actually shows up in this tale.
Wow.
So they go to marry Brunhilde.
Yeah, you be careful with that one.
And while the story goes that she may have also sort of been cursed in the same way as Sigurdrifa. That's why we're not sure if
Oh, she was a tower girl?
Yeah, Brunhilde
Yeah.
might be the tower girl. We're not really sure. And anyway, they go to woo her, but on the way, Gunnar and Sigurd switch bodies. So when they show up,
Sorry,
Sigurd is in Gunnar's body and Gunnar is in Sigurd's body.
It's like Freaky Friday.
It's like Freaky Friday. It's real crazy. And so
Did they say why? This just happens.
the trickery of Gunnar's mom.
Okay, great.
And she wants to put one over on Sigurd.
Okay.
So they show up, and turns out Sigurd is real charming, and he's totally fearless and rad. And he's amazing, but he's wearing Gunnar's body.
Right.
And so he sleeps in the same bed with Brunhilde for eight nights. But every night he lays his sword, Graham, in between. So Graham, you're the third wheel. Third wheeling it real hard in between these two lovers.
Yeah, well.
He never gets with her, but she kind of falls in love with this person. And so she decides to marry him. But on the way back, they switch bodies
Right.
back. And so now she's stuck with this dope Gunnar instead of the guy she really wanted, Sigurd. And she is hacked about it. She's super mad, really jealous, not okay with being tricked, not okay with marrying the wrong guy. She doesn't like Gunnar at all. She doesn't love him.
Would you say she was tricked? I mean, Sigurd knew he was Gunnar?
I'm not sure.
Well,
I don't know if they knew.
Mirrors
I don't know
back
if there were mirrors were expensive, man.
That would have come up.
But if you saw
Him in a different
Sigurd
body.
walking,
Oh, yeah, and if
you'd
you
be
saw,
huh?
That looks like me. Gunnar. You never looked so much like me before. Okay, so she gets really mad, and so she goes and tries to convince Gunnar to kill him.
Oh.
Her current husband. She's like, I don't really.
But she loves him.
No, she does not love Gunnar.
No. She's trying to convince
Gunnar
Sigurd
to go kill the man she loves. She
Yeah.
can't stand the thought of him
because
laying
she
with
wants
another
Gunnar.
woman.
Because she wants Gunnar to die.
No, she wants Sigurd to die because she's mad she got tricked, and she's mad jealous that he's with another woman all the time.
Oh.
She just hates where she is.
So she's asking her husband to kill the man she loves.
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
He does not want
Not the
to.
weirdest
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
He
Have
doesn't-
some
he doesn't want to,
self-respect,
right?
Gunnar.
They're blood brothers.
Right.
So he
After drinking together
best
for a
friend.
week. Yeah, exactly.
they mingle. Yeah. And I think they actually have like a ritual where they mingle their blood and
Oh,
become
wow.
blood brothers. It's pretty intense.
Middle school right there.
Yeah, for reals. And so
does
he
he do
goes
it?
and tries to, he doesn't really want to, so he
Right.
goes and tries to recruit Hogni, his brother. He's like, hey, Hogni, do you want to kill Sigurd? And Hogni's like, no, he's our blood
way.
brother,
Right.
you idiot. You gave a bunch of oaths to him. They would bring such shame upon our house if you did this. It's a terrible idea. And he's like, you know what we could do? Get our third brother. He didn't give any oaths.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's get our other kid to do it. Their younger brother, Gothorm. So Gothorm is like, oh, chill, yeah, I'll do that. So he's fine. Sigurd's got some real nice stuff. So he goes and he stabs Sigurd in his bed. There's some stories he's stabbed outside and they leave him to die, but in this one he's stabbed in his bed. And then Sigurd, not to take things lying down, he like jumps up and grabs Graham and chucks him at the kid.
Wow.
And I gotta read you the quote on what happens. So he throws his sword. His good sword Graham flew shining from his hand and cut down Gothorm. The boy was split in two. His head and hands fell one way. His feet and hips fell another.
Wow.
Oh,
That's crazy.
So good job, Graham.
Yeah, seriously.
So he chucks him and offs this kid, and then
Oh my gosh.
Brunhilde feels real kind of bad about it.
Yeah.
So she feels real bad. Obviously, the wife Guthrun feels terrible. Her dead husband is right there, and she sets up a wail, and then the geese outside squawk back.
Wait. Is he dead? Sigurd?
Yeah, Sigurd
He does
dies.
die.
Sigurd
Right after-
dies.
okay.
So that's the
So
tale
his
of Sigurd.
last thing is just Huck and Graham at this
Huck
kid.
and Graham at this kid.
Yeah.
And then his wife wakes up and sets up a wail, and the geese reply.
Like a whale, as in like
Wah!
AIL, not WHALE.
Yes, she
Okay,
does not.
anything
set
can
up a
happen in
wail.
the story. I'm just
At
making
this point, I
sure.
have no idea.
Okay, man, I only have like 5 minutes left. I've gotta sort of summarize what happens. So she's really sad. And she just
The geese
is
call back?
inconsolably. Yeah, they're very sympathetic geese. And then later she cries again and they do it again. So apparently she's got this flock of really sympathetic geese.
Yeah.
So Brunhilde, inconsolable, she's not happy. So she starts to give away all her possessions, intending suicide. Gunnar is like, girl, don't maybe?
Right.
And tries to get everybody else to convince Brunhilde not to do it after getting her lover offed by her current husband.
She has to do it.
She's like, nah, I'm probably gonna die. Could you burn us on the same pyre, like me and the guy I had you kill? And then she kills herself, and he's like, no. So they burn him on different pyres, and then she heads to hell. And
Wow.
there's even a little aside where she has like a chat with a giant lady on the way to hell. The poem is, I think, literally called like Brunhilde's Journey to Hell. So she goes to hell, and then Sigurd, the wife of. No, sorry. Guthrun, the wife of Sigurd, is inconsolable, and they want to get her married off to somebody else. They're like, this sister is just, she's such a chore. So they give her, I've named it Forget a Beer. It's beer that makes you forget stuff.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. I got to find the page. Forget a Beer, 310.
It's most beer, if it's
I guess
at some level.
Sure.
Okay, so her mom, Grimhild, brought her a drinking horn. There were all sorts of runes in that horn, carved there and bloodied, and I couldn't read them. There was a long serpent carved on the horn. There was an ear of wheat, and there were animal guts. So all kinds of weird carvings on this horn.
Cool.
Not a good
I wouldn't,
indication.
Maybe not.
No, thank you.
Pass that
pass.
one.
Yeah.
Many evil things were mixed into that beer.
Yeah.
The blood of all beasts.
Okay.
All beasts.
All beasts,
a
everyone.
lot. Yeah.
Burned acorns, eagle's blood, and intestines, and boiled pig's liver. All because she wanted to make me forget.
That's what, like, if you saw that on the label of your beer, you'd be like,
All
it's
sorts,
like,
huh?
Yeah, it's just what this flavor, this IPA's got like notes of all beast and
I think based
burnt
on-
acorns.
Yeah, all beast, burnt acorn, blood, liver. And anyway, she drinks it. It makes her kind of forget things.
works,
And then they marry her off to Attila the Hun.
Oh, there you
really?
go.
Wow.
Brunhilde's brother.
Wow.
So he gets this rad wife, Guthrun, who's she's awesome. And then they kind of hang out for a while. Gunnar falls in love with one of Attila's sisters.
Okay.
But Attila's like, nah, Gunnar's the worst. He
But
killed...
he's still married to Brunhilde.
Oh, no, she committed suicide. Remember?
Oh, that's right.
right.
Yeah.
Right? So she's off in hell, and Gunnar kind of falls in love with a new girl, Attila's other sister, and he's like, nah,
Yeah.
Brunhilde's dead, you chump. Like,
Yeah.
you tricked my other sister. I ain't having none of your family in here again, so
Right.
whatever, you can't have her. And then eventually, he actually sends what seems to be a nice invitation to the brothers, Hogni and Gunnar, right? The messenger,
Attila the Hun does.
Attila the Hun does. And
Does this end well? Of course not.
as you can imagine.
Right, yeah,
no.
sure.
And he promises everything. He's like, oh, no, he'll give you like 40 horses and some cups and some gold and some land and some titles and some armor and all kinds of... He just promises, like, it seems like the messenger is just coming up with stuff with the top of his head.
Exactly.
Just anything that sounds cool. And cups and golden cups and pearls and ponies and good horses. And he just like lists things for a page. And Hogni is like,
Sweet.
this is a bad idea. Remember, Hogni seems to be the brother that has the head on his shoulders.
Right.
He's the one that didn't want to kill Sigurd in the first place. And so Hogni's like,
Gunnar.
Gunnar, this is a bad idea, bro. We shouldn't do it. We are absolutely flipping rich already. Like, we got all that guy's treasure. We got Sigurd's money. We got Graham the sword. We got the best horse, Granny. We got everything we could ever want. Why do you gotta go get more stuff? Attila's scary.
Yeah.
And it turns out that their sister also sent them a warning. She sent Andverenot, the ring. Remember the old ring? And it had a wolf hair tied around it to kind of symbolize like a wolf will break the ring of gold, right? And so he's like, also, this weird wolfy ring, it doesn't bode well. And Gunnar is like, yes, but we're going. And so they go. As soon as they show up, Guthrun's like, this was a bad idea. Why'd you come? You should run. And they're like, well, I guess it's too late. And then they get captured. Gunnar just gets taken captured. Hogni kills like 7 dudes before getting captured.
Right.
But they're sort of, this is the...
Why'd Hogni go? Wasn't he just like, you know what, Gunnar?
Well, because
you may have the
Gunnar
wacky
was the greater
treasure.
king, I think, and he makes the decisions. And so they go, and I think I can finish this in the next like 8 minutes.
Sure.
You guys with me?
Do it.
Sure.
Okay, so they go, and Attila apparently hates these guys because they got his sister Brunhilde killed. Totally makes sense. And then so this is where they do the like good cop, bad cop, put the perpetrators in 2 different rooms and interrogate them differently. So he tries to get the money out of Gunnar. He's like, Gunnar, where's that gold? Where that gold at? Where that sweet and various pikefish gold.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll tell you as soon as you cut out my brother Hogni's heart.
Jeez, Gunnar.
Seems like a weird, right? Comes out of nowhere, right? These guys
Yeah.
are pretty thick. And so thick as in like thick as thieves. And so they go and they're like, they don't really want to kill Hogni yet. They just want to see what they can get out of him. So they go and they kill some other guy and they bring the heart and they present it to Gunnar. He's like, that's not my brother's heart. Look, it quivers on the plate. It's like scared to be here. My brother was never scared. You bring me Hogni's heart. I ain't no fool. And they're like, all right. So they go and they cut out Hogni's heart and they bring it.
Oh.
And it sits on the plate like solid, not even a wiggle. Like it's just a stone heart. And he's like, yeah, that looks like Hogni's heart. And with that, you'll never get the gold because with him dead, he was the only other one who knew the secret
Wow.
and I will never tell.
Wow.
And so
There
he
you
had
go.
his brother killed to keep the secret of the gold. So they take Gunnar and they chuck him in a snake pit.
Right.
This is Attila the Hun we're talking about. You don't mess with him. So he chucks him in a snake
Wait.
pit.
It's still out there.
Yeah.
The gold?
The gold.
Yeah, it's buried in the Rhine.
You want to go find it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, so they chuck him in a snake pit, and he starts to play the harp to kind of soothe the snakes and call his girl. Remember Attila's sister, right? He fell in love with this other girl, Oddrun.
She liked him?
Her name is Oddrun.
Oddrun.
Yeah, she liked him back. And so she starts sailing for the homeland because she hears this harp off in the distance. She doesn't get there. He's bit by a big old snake before she gets even close. She arrives and this like big mama viper is like fastened on his heart. And she's like, wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
He's dead. So that's a bummer. And Guthrin is now totally hacked because her brothers have been killed by her husband.
Right.
She's not having a good time.
She even sent the warning wolf ring.
Right.
I know. And there's she like talks to this other king that Attila knows, and she's like, man, my brothers are dead, my husband is dead, all my family's been killed, and I'm married to this guy who's now like I liked before, but now he's like killed my brothers and I don't know what to do about it. And she's having this chat. And one of her slave girls, I think it's Hirka. Yeah. Herkia. I call her Herkia the Jerkia because she rats her out. She's like, I saw your wife talking to this other king. I think they're like having an affair to Attila. And Attila just falls apart. He gets all scowly. And eventually Guthrin is like, look, test me. Put me through the trial of the kettle. Are you guys familiar with the trial
It's
of
like
the kettle?
boiling someone?
I'm not familiar with the trial of the kettle.
Apparently it's a Viking tradition.
Oh, okay.
If you are suspected of adultery, they take a rock and they put like runes on it and they bless it. Then they put it at the bottom of a boiling kettle. And you got to grab it. And if you are not injured in grabbing this rock in the boiling kettle, if you come out unburnt, then you're innocent.
Okay.
If you are burnt,
You gotta psych yourself up.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And she actually requests this. She's like, go get this guy. He knows how to bless the rock and put me through it. So she goes, she like plunks her hand in and pulls out the rock. Innocent. No burns, no nothing. And then they're like, we should put Herkia through this. So they have Herkia.
Oh, the Jerkia.
Herkia the Jerkia, like pull out the rock, and her hands gets all like scorched and torched, and she's like, rah! And so they go and drown her in a swamp. And they're like, slave girls who cause trouble, no good.
Oh,
So
man.
they drown her. And so Guthrin is still pretty hacked at Attila, right, for all this mess. And so what she does is she kills her children with Attila, cooks them into mead and food, and then feeds Attila his own kids. And he's like, flippin' Attila, you just ate your kids. And then he's of course speechless. And she tries to run and drown herself in the sea, but is ineffective. She does not succeed at drowning herself. And she actually floats on to a different king.
Oh.
She like throws herself in the sea and she just floats to a different country.
Yep. The waves are just like, and they take her somewhere else. So she's away from Attila. So she survives and she goes and she gets with King Jonaker, whom she marries. Turns out Jonaker's a pretty nice guy. They have a few kids, Sorley, Erp, Hamthir, and she still has her original kid by Sigurd, Svanhild. So she still has her daughter, right?
Okay.
And
it's
it's
kind of a happy ending.
oh,
Okay. Well,
so
We're not done, man.
we're not done. We're almost done. Like 2 more minutes. So Svanhild, her daughter, poor Guthrin, who's just have
She's had it rough.
She's had a real rough.
She's on
go of
husband
things.
number 3.
Right. She's on husband number 3. She's lost her brothers. Brunhilde killed her.
She had cooked her kids.
She cooked her own children. It's real rough. But at least she's got those sympathetic geese, right?
sure.
So anyway, she sends her daughter to marry mighty King Jormunrek. So she sends her daughter, and one of Jormunrek's advisors says, hey, to his like Jormunrek's kid, he's like, hey, you should have your way with your dad's new wife before he does. So the son does, and clearly this advisor had something out against him, because then he rats them both out. He's like, your brand new wife and your son just, got busy. And so Jormunrek the king hangs his son and has his like bride to be trampled to death by horses.
Wow.
Rough.
It is real rough. And so poor Guthrin is like, yeah, now I've seen my daughter's head trampled by horses in the dust. Like, that is so hard. So she recruits her kids to go get vengeance. Her like 3 remaining sons. Erp, and hold on, the names are so good. Let's see, where is it? Erp, Sorley, and Hamthir.
Good.
So on the way, like Erp isn't her son; it's her husband and one of his concubines, right?
Oh,
okay.
So he's like their half brother, and so they're on the way, and Erp
That's what they
apparently
call Erp,
looks like super good on the horse, and he's like prancing around, feeling himself real hard, and the other brothers get jealous, and they're like, "Dude, are you gonna help us with this thing or what? Like you're feeling yourself pretty hard." And they ask him a question, and he sort of flubs the answer. They say, "You little dark-haired jerk." I'm changing jerk there. How will you help us in this fight? And he answered the best he could. He says, "Like a foot helps a foot." But they doubted him. How can a foot help a foot? How can a hand help a hand? They're grown from the same flesh, you idiot. And then they murder him.
Oh my God.
Apparently, he just did not answer correctly.
Wow.
And then they go and they try to kill King Jormunrek, and they do a pretty good job of it. They kill a whole bunch of people. They even cut off Jormunrek's arms and legs.
Wow.
And then they start mocking him, and they're like, "Stupid king, you killed my sister." And then he hollers to all of his followers. He says, "Look, these kids can't be hurt by blades or spears. You got to hit them with rocks." So his followers stone them to death. They're like, "Oh, shouldn't have mocked him." Like,
It's true.
It's a good lesson.
And with that, with the end of the two brothers, Sorli and Hamthir, is the end of the line of Sigmund, right? That's where the Volsungs die.
Crazy.
So it's
Never mind. No happy ending.
So Sigmund to Helgi, and then through to another kid, Sigurd, and then Sigurd with his whole mess with Guthrum, his wife, and all these things. Did you guys kind of track all the way through?
Yes.
Like you can kind of see how piece by piece, it's just a tale of woe and hardship in a family that's really hard to deal with.
It's like
yeah, it's very much like, I know exactly
the
what
House of
you're thinking.
Atreides.
Yeah, it's like the House of Atreides.
Yeah.
There's even people feeding their kids to other people.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
it's
that's
very similar.
that's fascinating to me. Is that you have that story,
detail.
that detail in there.
It's the most, I think it's the most taboo thing someone can do.
Yeah.
And it was even her own children.
Yeah.
Like, so heavy. I was interested to find Attila the Hun popping up.
Yeah, sure. That was a surprise too.
Cool.
And then
Yeah.
it just ends after that.
Then it just ends after that. Like, that's it. That's it. Oh, the last thing that makes me think Jackson Crawford is really cool is he retranslates all of Odin's advice. Remember how I did that last
Right,
podcast? In the end as an appendix, but he does it in a Western accent. So like a cowboy. It's the cowboy version.
You want to read some?
Oh my word.
Use your eyes and never walk blind. There ain't no telling when there's someone waiting to put one over on you.
It's good.
Don't be unkind to a wanderer. You know the type. Waiting proud outside your doorstep. Give him a break. Let him in. Like, it's the whole thing redone in Western, which makes me think that this Jackson Crawford fellow is pretty cool.
Pretty cool guy, seriously. All right, I'm going to wrap it up then. If
Sure.
we're there.
That was a lot.
That was awesome.
Thanks for sticking with me,
Yeah,
guys.
for sure. That was great. Did you say there's kind of another set of poems you can do? Or
Yeah, there's the Saga of the Volsungs. I haven't been able to look. I don't know if it's just those poems in a shorter volume,
Sure.
or if it's like another prose thing. There's also the Prose Edda, which is written later.
But it's the same stories.
Some of it's the same, yeah.
Sure. Anyway, I thought it was really great. So this has been Classical Stuff You Should Know. You can find us online at classicalstuff.net. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/classicalstuff. We post in between episodes of banter, and you can ask us questions, which we answer monthly, and all kinds of fun stuff there. So check it out. We're also on Twitter at Classical Stuff, CLSSCAL Stuff. You can email us at theguys@classicalstuff.net. And I think that is all that we have. So thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye.